What is up, everybody? Today is going to be the first time we're ever going to attempt live streaming, so please bear with us as we get everything set up here. Our goal for this is going to be to go over the self-hosted newsletter that they put out every single week. And it's a really great newsletter. It's one of the ways that I keep up with what's going on in the self-hosted world. Today we're also going to address something else first, but I want to introduce who's here. My name is Evan. I am Servers at Home. You probably recognize my voice. I'm also here with John. He's known as Scarlet on the Discord, on the Servers at Home Discord. You've probably seen him in some of the threads moderating, as well as helping me out with a lot of things on the back end, because Servers at Home is in fact a group effort, and I want to make it as community driven as possible. So John, go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Hey everyone.
So today,
thanks for joining the stream.
Yeah, thank you. We're gonna get used to that. So we are gonna go over self-hosted weekly every single week. They release every single Friday, but I want to address kind of more of an elephant in the room. The TrueNAS virtualization is changing for 25.04.2. The 0.2 release is right now scheduled for the end of July. You guys are definitely not the first people to probably tell and talk about on our servers that there's some challenges with the Incus virtualization. So you're not the only ones to say that, and it's been pretty commonly known that this is kind of the issue. TrueNAS has released a bunch of information about this. So this is the forum post that they released. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put this in the chat if you guys want to read this for yourself, which I encourage you to do. And all the way at the bottom, I'm going to scroll all the way down. There's a YouTube video, which is where a lot of the information I get that I talk about TrueNAS comes from, because of course I get it right from the source, which is Chris Moore. He'll be the gentleman on the very right of this image as soon as the my audio is obviously ahead of the video because there's about a 30-second delay. But in about a few more seconds, you'll see I scroll down and right there. The guy on the right there is Chris Moore. He works for IX Systems. You'll see him on the TrueNAS forums a lot. He's the one that's pretty much the vocal mouthpiece for IX. When you hear it from him, you're hearing it directly from the source. He is the guy that is actually working for IX, talking to the developers, talking to people like us. He's on the forums. He's talking to customers because, of course, IX Systems does actually sell TrueNAS as a product to people. So, yeah, he's a pretty big deal over at IX, and he was the one that is doing a lot of this information release. So let's scroll back up to the top here, and I'm going to kind of just give you the overall summary. I'm also going to tell you that there's going to be a video that's going to be released on the YouTube channel for people not watching this live stream that's talking more about the upcoming changes. But the long story short is some people felt very strongly about the fact that Fangtooth 25.04 and then 25.04.1 are released as full-on complete products, but the virtualization is in fact experimental. So it's that's a little bit of it brought up some feelings in the community, to say the least. So going forward, in order to mitigate some of the issues that have been going on, they're going to bring back the virtualization functionality from Electric Eel. So I'm going to highlight that in this article right here, and you guys will see that in 20 seconds or so. It's the beginning of the second paragraph. Virtualization in Electric Eel was working for a lot of people. I'm not going to say it was the greatest thing in the world. Personally, I'm a Proxmox guy when it comes to my VMs, but it worked, and it worked for Windows VMs, and it worked for Linux, and you can do virtual machine ZVol backups and snapshots, all kinds of cool stuff that you were able to do in Electric Eel that we lost the ability to do on Incus, because when Incus was built in, it was built in and it was bolted on pretty quickly, and it didn't have things like for example, the ability to do snapshots on data sets. In fact, you can't even see where the data sets for the virtual hard disk for some of the instances even live. So things like that made it really difficult. So people were just like, man, this is tough. This is a tough thing to do if I want to have really good data security with my instances. Personally, I was a huge fan of the fact that LXCs were brought in, because I think LXCs are amazing. I like to use them way more than I like virtual machines, and it's a very rare case that I'm going to use virtual machines. But let's cut to the chase here. Again, in 25.04.2, which is going to be the release that's scheduled for the end of July right now, they're going to allow us to do both going forward. Basically, we're going to have the ability to go back and use the old type of virtualization in Electric Eel, as well as keep our Incus containers and our Incus VMs. That sounds complicated. I'm really happy that IX Systems found a way to make it pretty simple, especially for the users out there that are still on Electric Eel. So if you're a person on Electric Eel right now, you're on 24 4.10.2.2, right, which is the latest version for Electric Eel. And you have virtual machines. You might have a Windows virtual machine or a Home Assistant virtual machine, like I know many people do. And you're like, I don't want to upgrade to Fangtooth. It's going to break it. Yeah, no, you're right. It's going to break it. So don't upgrade. But with the change coming of the inclusion of virtualization back into 25.04.2, the July release of Fangtooth, you're going to have an upgrade path now. You're going to be able to go from Electric Eel to Fangtooth with your existing virtual machines without any breakage. So that's pretty awesome. I'm actually really happy about that. And the amazing thing is a lot of people have been kind of hemming and hawing in the community saying, oh man, this is like, they're going backwards. This doesn't feel like it's really done. I kind of like this. Because more compatibility is never a bad thing. When we went to Incus, we lost backwards compatibility with existing virtual machines and Electric Eel. And that was tough for a lot of people. And that was like, breaking changes. Breaking changes with TrueNAS are kind of challenging. And there's been more than one time that's happened. And people have definitely brought that up like, oh, there are frequent breaking changes. And that's really hard in a production level operating system. This is not one of those things. In fact, I wish they had kind of done this when they released Fangtooth and saying, hey, we're going to do this thing called Incus. So we're going to allow you to choose between Incus and your existing virtualization. So the people that have virtual machines can use them the same way they did in Electric Eel. And if you want to use the Incus version of that going forward, you have the option of doing that too. So I kind of wish they had done this at just when they released Fangtooth 25.04, but it took to 25.04.2 before that happened. So I think that's kind of amazing. Going forward, especially into 26.04. So I'm going to start giving you guys some code names. 25.10 is going to be FG Goldeye. And the next one is H. So it goes EFG. H is always some kind of aquatic fish. So H is going to be called Half Moon. So Goldeye is 25.10. And then GH. And then Half Moon is going to be 26.04. Both of those versions right now, as of the release in this page, and what we see here in this, are saying that they're going to continue to go forward with both. So if you have LXCs right now, you don't have to be like, oh man, now I got to delete my LXCs and go back to VMs. Or if you have VMs, you're like, oh, I don't want to put anything in Incus because they're going to eventually just cut off Incus. That's not the case. As of right now, the announcements by IX are going to be, everything is going to be compatible going forward. Virtualization is going to be compatible going forward the way it is in Electric Eel right now, and then Incus is going to be compatible going forward the way it is right now in Fangtooth. So it just gives users more options. John, give me your thoughts on some of this stuff.
Yeah, so it's difficult because they made a change and they stuck with it, and they went through a few betas, and the community discussed it and didn't like it, but we still need to give IX Systems a pat on the back for not sticking with through all this and making everyone else suffer until it's ready, because the ultimate goal is for this virtualization tab or instances tab to be done, to be finished. And I think it's a good middle ground until it's ready to give us back what we lost. And so RK is asking what are the main differences between them besides Incus. Evan kind of already went over a few of those things. So you're going to be able to see your VMs in the back end and actually be able to go through them with your data sets and stuff like that. It's just got more functionality. You can do snapshots with them. You can back them up. There's just a lot more functionality that's just not there in the current system. So overall, it's a net benefit, but it's a benefit of what we already had. So we don't need to go too hard on them. They hurt us when we said something about it, and now they're reverting back. But instead of removing what is there, they're going to keep both systems. So I think that's a net positive for anyone, to be honest.
Yeah, I love the two system going forward, man. I really just love the idea that if I'm an Electric Eel user and I have VMs that I spent countless hours building, I don't have to migrate or do anything. It's just going to work. And for me personally, again, I'm a huge LXC guy. So I like the idea of the fact that I can do LXCs in TrueNAS. My eventual goal and what I'd like to see is one ultimate operating system that does everything. I know that's asking a lot because I feel like that's not a realistic request, but like when TrueNAS built in Incus and I saw LXCs come into TrueNAS like virtually, I was like, man, that's huge because like most of you, I don't spend a ton of money on my servers. In fact, a lot of the things I get are rescues from like the garbage. I don't have a huge, powerful home lab. I'm not like some YouTubers out there where they're sitting on $10,000 of equipment. Guys, my whole rack is probably worth like less than $1,000, and I've got some stuff in it. And $1,000 might sound like a lot, but that's like 10 gigabit networking. That's 2 different PCs. That's a battery backup system. It's a pretty robust stack for what I got it for. And my Proxmox server is basically an old Dell Optiplex that I rescued out of the garbage. Man, it's so underpowered. But my TrueNAS server that I've been building that for years and years and years. Just a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, just slowly pouring into it. So it's a lot more powerful. And like right now, for me to run LXCs before Fangtooth, I had to do it off my little stupid Dell Optiplex, and because LXCs are light, it was pretty easy to do. But like, man, if I really wanted to get serious with it, that Dell Optiplex has not got a whole lot of redundancy, backup, failure proof, all the stuff that TrueNAS gives me. So when I saw them bring Incus into that, I was like, we're getting closer to like the all big solution of getting one operating system that'll be able to do a lot of things. The challenge with that, of course, is complexity, and with more complexity comes more breakage, but I like the 2 systems going forward. I think it's great because people like me, I get Incus and I get LXCs. People that already have put a lot of time into Electric Eel and their VMs there's an answer for them as well. So I feel like this kind of is the best of both worlds. This should make everybody happy. I just said I wish they kind of did it earlier.
I don't think we need to bring up how much I spent on my server.
We're not going to talk about that. The idea is that, again, with the goal of servers at home, what we talk about here is I don't want people to necessarily feel like this is a hobby that you have to sink tons and tons of money into. This is something you can get started with an extra desktop you have laying around, or maybe even a laptop where you don't close the lid. It can be as jank as that if you want it to be. There's a great video that Jeff did from Craft Computing, where he talks about what a server is and what a server isn't. And basically a server is anything you want it to be. And I really love that video. It's on my blog if you go back and take a look at it. But it doesn't have to be anything crazy. But so I wanted to start with this news about TrueNAS virtualization and just talk about the fact that this is, we have a video coming out about this. I recommend you come watch the video itself. So at the very bottom of the article, which again is posted in the chat, you'll see the YouTube little play button here in about 30 seconds. The screen will catch up with you guys. I recommend you go and just watch that. The first 9 minutes or so of that video are all about the change, why the change is happening, how they envision it going forward. They also bring up the image change in there, which we can go over a little bit later in this newscast as well. I recommend just going and watching this. They release every single Friday as well. So self-hosted releases every Friday, and so does T3, which is the the channel that this YouTube video is hosted on. So T3 is TrueNAS Tech Talk, and it's pretty amazing. There's not a lot of followers right now. It's like what I think, John, like 2,100 like people I think sub to that channel.
Yeah,
it's not.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely go over there, and if you're interested in getting the most updated news, go over there. We're actually at 3 EST. We're releasing a news video covering this, so if people aren't going to watch it, or if you just want a quick recap of what's going on. So we're going to be releasing that today after the stream, and I think moving forward, I think we're going to be doing that more, covering them weekly. Of course, get your news directly from the source, from the creators of IX Systems, but we're going to be doing that if you guys are interested in getting a quick little dose of information for TrueNAS.
Yeah, definitely leave us some comments in this chat right now to let us know if that's something you're interested in, because again, we want to go forward every single week with self-hosted, but breaking this out into a bigger news segment would be interesting, and I'll be curious to see if you guys would be interested in that. If we should cover more than just self-hosting, we should talk about a lot of other topics. So within self-hosting, of course, but besides the newsletter. So yeah, just drop us a comment here, or talk to us on Discord, talk to us on YouTube, if that's something you're going to be interested in. But I think this is probably going to wrap it up for this topic. John, is there anything else you want to cover when it comes to the TrueNAS change?
Overall, like I said, net positive. They're listening. That's good that they're listening. We should applaud them for listening.
Yeah.
They don't have to listen to us. They give us great free software, they don't have to do this for us.
Yeah, I think that should actually be really a little more pushed. A lot of people will go against a lot of companies that offer things behind paywalls, and I really applaud IX Systems because just about every feature that you'll need for TrueNAS Community Edition is free. Now there are some enterprise features that are paywalled off, but I love their model because I get to use like 99% of the software. Only like a very small percentage of it is paywalled, and it's stuff that I would never use. Like if I had clusters and I needed like to manage like 6 or 7 of these things at once, and I need all kinds of failover, like that's the enterprise stuff. It's really, really high end for people that usually have either very powerful servers or many servers that are distributed. That's not my use case. I don't think that's the use case for a lot of home labbers. So because IX sells this system and they actually professionally support it and charge their customers for it, I get to use it for free because those customers are basically paying for my development. And so I really want to shout out to IX for that, because the way they built their system and the way their company is structured by selling this as a service and doing a great job for the customers that they have allows all those updates and all the changes they make eventually downstream to reach us. So I'm this little guy in a home lab who, IX doesn't even know who I exist, yet I'm using this unbelievably powerful software to do things that in my home lab should barely even be possible. That used to be way more difficult years and years ago. So my hat is off to IX. I thank these guys so much for the fact that they give so much of this away and it's not paywalled. Like if TrueNAS didn't exist, like we can talk about that later too. What's the next best operating system? And it's like, man, there's a few other out there, but I don't think anything does what this does with the way it does it. So I kind of love it. I'm kind of in love with it.
I agree.
Okay, let's jump over here. I'm going to change this tab now. So now we're going to jump over to the self-host weekly newsletter. So in a few seconds, you guys will get that update as I click my tab and change the screen. They do this again every single week about 8 a.m. on a Friday, East Coast time. It's released, and they go over highlights and new apps and updated apps and all kinds of stuff like that. I love this as a resource because the self-hosting world is huge. There are so many developers out there who are building things all the time and decommissioning things all the time, which is something we'll talk about today as well. It's almost, I find it very difficult to keep up with everything. So the fact that these guys actually put out this nice little package newsletter where they cover all of the changes, I don't know how they do it. There's a lot of stuff, but I think it's great because I get to come to one central source and get a lot of my news. I also use Reddit for this stuff as well, and I'm going to jump over to Reddit later, but this is probably my number one source for self-hosted and open source news of things that I actually probably want to do. So let's jump right into the weekly highlights. And again, the top section is always going to be weekly highlights. So the first paragraph talks about PewDiePie. PewDiePie is pretty amazing. He says that if you guys don't know anything about that, he started a while ago, but basically started out as a game video uploader to YouTube. So got really, really, really big with that. Got kind of really famous with that. And he's put out a couple videos in the last 2 months or so. So I'm going to click over to his channel now. Again, you guys will get the update in a minute. I will tell you his channel in YouTube has 110 million subscribers. So this is to say the least, a very large channel. There are 2 videos I want to point out that he's put up in the last 2 months. One was 2 months ago, and it's called, and you'll see it here on the left, the little blue icon, I installed Linux, and so should you. I thought this was pretty incredible because this is a guy who, again, mostly a Windows gamer who just did game stream footage. So to go from that to Linux was like, wow, 22-minute video, 6 million views 2 months ago. Started a lot of conversation in the community. John, I want to get your thoughts on the idea of somebody like this coming in and then releasing something talking about Linux versus gaming, which is what he got famous for originally.
Yeah, PewDiePie, I watched him a lot when I was a younger kid, so it's cool to see him learn about this stuff. He doesn't really need to. With his whole move to Japan, it's been pretty interesting how much he's changed with a lot. And going into a community like the open source community like this, it's nice to get some more info. It's one thing to get it from Linus Tech Tips or Chris Titus or something like that, but some person that everyone gets to see, like PewDiePie, it's pretty cool for them to see that. And then definitely the de-Googling your life thing. One of YouTube's top creators and is talking about de-Googling his life. another pretty interesting topic.
Yeah, really interested that he did that on YouTube, which is, of course, owned by Google, if you guys don't know that, or owned by Alphabet, to be more specific in the way they do their holdings. But 2.7 million views on the I'm Done with Google video in the top left corner in 20 hours. That's something. that's definitely causing some waves. I'm fascinated by this. I love the idea of a big-time name like this bringing more visibility into the space, especially for people that would have never considered this. I think people look at Linux and a lot of what we do here with self-hosting as something that's like kind of black magic, like kind of like the way like anyone opens the terminal and all of a sudden you're a hacker. That kind of thing is like, oh, I have my own server. It's like, what do you do with that? What would you do with your own server? People just don't understand like how amazingly functional it can be. So I really like someone like him kind of jumping into this and showing people, hey, this is not as scary as you might think it is. In fact, I think the technical competence of people is generally coming up over time, especially as we continue to just push the technology forward and into people's hands via phones and all kinds of cool stuff like that. Like, people are just becoming much more comfortable with technology. So I think that this is kind of like the next natural iteration for people. I'm hoping this is the way it's going, where people realize that, hey, I love my technology, but what I don't love is the fact that, like, if you own Apple, an iPhone, or a Pixel or something like that, that like, hey, if they make a change at the company level, like, I don't get a say in that. When Google makes a change, I don't get a say in what they do. They just change things and I have to deal with it. When Apple makes a change, Apple doesn't ask me how I feel. Like, self-hosting is kind of amazing, is the fact that it is exactly what you want it to be. You don't have to answer to a large company. So again, with PewDiePie doing this, I'm curious to see how many people like follow the I'm Done with Google video and say, hey, I want to start working with Nextcloud, for example, which is one of the technologies he talks about. I want to start working with like Bitwarden and VaultWarden and File Browser and Joplin. Like, these are some of the things that were mentioned in his video. Yeah, pretty amazing. I thought that was a really interesting thing, and I want to see what it does for the community.
Joplin's a pretty weird note-taking app to choose. It's a pretty weird but it's open source. It's something.
Yeah.
But no, it's a good thing. Even Valve with doing the Steam Deck and getting more people introduced to Linux and seeing how smooth the operating system is, and then the Legion for its other handheld and using Steam Deck or the Steam OS.
Yeah, I can't tell you how happy it makes me every single time I see somebody put up a video that says something like, hey, this game is better on Steam Deck than it is on Windows. I giggle with joy every time that happens. It makes me so happy.
Yeah, Microsoft's a little scared for that. And so that's why they had to announce their whole Xbox update with the Ally X from ROG.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting to see Microsoft being scared.
I love it. I love Microsoft being scared. I really think that's pretty incredible. Because I'll be honest with you, a lot of people that I try, because I'm a huge, like, preach the gospel of Linux to everybody. Try not to be pushy too much on this channel, but you guys kind of probably catch the undertone. I think gaming is one of the things that's keeping people on Windows a lot. I think that's the last holdout. I think if Linux was better with gaming from the beginning, I wonder how many people will be like, you know what I don't want? I don't want Windows taking a screenshot of my screen every 30 seconds. Like, because it does. Like, I don't want, like, in certain cases, and like, I don't want ads pushed on my start menu, or I don't want every single time Microsoft's to do an update Tuesday to break my stuff that was working, or think, oh god, there's so many things. Personally, I use Fedora and I don't game, so the challenge with that is can't really speak too intelligently into the space. I can just tell you that with the Steam Deck, I get really excited because someone is actively putting a lot of weight into Linux gaming, and it's working so much that Microsoft is actually responding. So to get movement out of Microsoft from something as small as that's the David and Goliath right there. That's the way I feel, John.
Yeah, I agree. Microsoft, especially with Recall, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, Recall.
What people are going to have to go through. And what RK says, or the updates that introduce stuff that you didn't opt into. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
A lot of the features that they do should be opt in, not opt out. But
absolutely. So let's get to some of these news items here. I'm scrolling down. You guys are going to get this in a minute. So the basic section of this, we always start with the in the news section on top of Self-Hosted Weekly. The one at the very bottom is the one that I want to jump into first. This is about the tailnet lock. They've changed some things here for Tailscale, and Tailscale is something you want to talk about amazing. This is one of the reasons I love this community. I've never used Tailscale before I started servers at home, and I was kind of against the idea of it because I was like, oh, this doesn't look secure. It's not the same as WireGuard. It looks overly complex. I don't like the fact that I have to have an account. Anytime somebody makes me create an account and log in somewhere, I get itchy. I don't like that. As a self-hoster, man, I want to own it. So I avoided this for years, and God, was I ever wrong. Oh my God, was I wrong. Tailscale is just incredible. The idea of mesh and overlay VPNs are incredible. I think these things are amazing. So every single time I see Tailscale pushing some piece of technology forward, I'm like, man, this is great for the community, because the better we get at VPNs like this, overlay or what they call mesh VPNs, the better the user is. Because if you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, if you've never used Tailscale before, let me just tell you. John, tell me your feelings on Tailscale before I jump into my diatribe.
I love Tailscale. I've only scratched the surface of it. There's so much to it. You're on something different than Tailscale, isn't it? Netbird?
Yes, I'm on Netbird. Netbird but it's the same. Those are both considered overlay or mesh VPN, so they're very, very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got stuck on Tailscale. Someone really pushed it onto me, and it's been great. I love it.
Yeah, pretty incredible. If you've never used Tailscale, if you guys again don't know what we're talking about, basically it's a VPN that gets you back into your network. If you know, there's two different types of VPNs out there. There's VPNs that we use with something like qBittorrent, for example, where you want like a privacy VPN like on your phone, like you use Molvad. That's for your data going out, so that your ISP can't see where you're going. You're moving your trust basically from your ISP, who sees everything, to eventually your VPN provider, who will see everything. But VPN providers are generally more trustworthy if you pick the right ones than your ISP, who can care less about you. So this is not that kind of VPN. This is the VPN you use to get back into your home network. So say, for example, I leave my house, but I want to access stuff that I have in my home network. That's what Tailscale does. That's what Netbird does. So I see somebody in the chat talking about self-hosting as well.
You can self-host Tailscale on your system so that you don't need to connect to Tailscale servers. You are creating an endpoint on your network for you to connect to your Tailscale instance, so that you can remote into your network.
Absolutely. So in those guys, I know some people think that is, if you're not hosting the control plane, or they don't call it the control plane, they call it something else here, the coordination server. That's what you're logging into when you use Tailscale. Same thing with Netbird. It has a coordination server or a control plane as well. You can set both of those offer self-hosting options. So if you're one of those people out there that says, hey, I'm like you, I don't want to create an account anywhere, and I don't want anyone else to have the control plane, that's fine. You can self-host that yourself. Spin up a VPS. Yeah, headscale is needed, RK. Headscale is the Tailscale component that is the self-hosted part of the control plane, or the I keep saying control plane, but they don't call it that. They basically call it the, I gotta highlight this so I just can look at it in the thing. Coordination server. There we go.
I need to do a video over that.
We did. So I haven't done the headscale one yet. I've done Tailscale, but I'm going to do headscale, and I might do Netbird at the same time. Headscale is interesting because it's all command line, and they've built some GUI front ends to it. So I think Headscale admin or Headscale-admin is one of the nicer UIs for Headscale, because Headscale is really just all command line, which is really difficult. It's not very user friendly for the very beginner. It's Tailscale. If you let them just self-host, if you let them host the coordination server, it's insanely user friendly. In fact, that's what kind of got me into it when I started playing with Tailscale, and I was like, all right, wait, how do I get this on my endpoints? How do I set it up? How do I get back to my home lab? And then I started doing it, and I was like, it does magic DNS. So instead of memorizing these IP addresses that it does, when I add my TrueNAS machine, for example, into Tailscale, it's just called TrueNAS. So when I want to go to my TrueNAS machine, I just type in https://TrueNAS. That's it. And I don't have to set that up. That's automatic. So really cool things like magic DNS, the ability of the fact that the mesh VPN is point to point. So I used to use WireGuard, and WireGuard, the way it works is if I have a WireGuard server, all my traffic flows through the server. But with something like Tailscale, my traffic doesn't flow through the control plane or the coordination server. The coordination server basically exists just to tell all the other endpoints where all the other endpoints are. That's basically it. Yeah, I see people talking about pricing. Tailscale is free. NetBird is free for up to 100 endpoints. So unless you need to connect more than 100 different things, you're going to get all the functionality for free. So don't worry about that. So these are all things, same deal. I get people that look at this and see that, be like, oh my God, I see pricing, I see logins, I see this part isn't self-hosted, this looks awful. Same reason I avoided Tailscale forever. That was a mistake. That was a huge mistake. I love NetBird. I love Tailscale. I think it's incredible. And this piece of news is what they're releasing now, is what they're talking about in terms of trust. Like, what if you can use Tailscale without having to trust Tailscale? That's the ideal Tailnet lock. So that's what they're talking about here in this article. Tailnet lock is basically the idea that you can, instead of creating keys, which is the way that you would add an endpoint, right? So if I wanted to add a phone and I got, like, say, a laptop. I have a laptop and a phone, and I want to add them onto my Tailnet. And the Tailnet is basically the private internet that gets created within the VPN. I would have to create a key for both of those, or I can log in using my username and password, but I probably wouldn't do that for people I want to distribute this to. Like John, for example, if I wanted John to have access to my home lab, I can basically create an API key, an API key or VPN key just for him that would expire the second he used it, so he'll be the only one that ever gets to use it, and then he would get access into my Tailnet and be able to see some things that I give him permission to. With Tailnet lock, that eliminates even that, where I can basically sign his node, and then his node gets to join in. He won't get access to anything until I give him access to it, but it saves me the step of having to do the keys and the key exchange and things like that. So that's really interesting, that the way they're doing that. And you can read more about it here. Tailnet lock lets customers control which nodes are signed and verified for access by trusted signing nodes. So by doing these things called signing nodes and doing things like trust on first use, it allows a little bit more functionality and less trust into Tailscale, more trust in what you're doing and what you're building. So this article goes into all of that and it just talks about the way they do in this case, the Tailnet lock keys and Tailnet key authority. It gets a little in the weeds about how specific it gets, and that's cool. Again, because I know you guys want to get really down to the dirt, like to the very fine grain aspects of this. If you're going to trust something with a VPN, you want to know all about how it works. So yeah, this is in there. This is going to show you all of that and talk about all that. They have a white paper here, and they have the original post on Tailnet lock. I love the idea of them continuing to iterate and continuing to make this better. Anything that makes Tailscale better is better for us. More functionality is great, because when I use things like NetBird, who are competing with Tailscale, they're going to see this and probably respond with something similar. So now we have this wonderful competition that's going to drive innovation. John, your feelings on some of this and some of the changes that are going forward?
Yeah, that's good. More security is better for everyone, especially if you're setting up Tailscale and someone says, hey, just give me access to your Tailscale, or like your endpoint or something, and just people don't understand what that is. And so giving more security to that user is ultimately a good thing.
I think so too. I think it's great. I love increase, because the problem again is they're usually dealing with the difference between security and usability. Those two things are usually in opposition. If I have more security, it's usually more cumbersome. It's a little bit harder. That's the challenge. So I like the idea of the fact that I can get high security with a lot more usability. I think that's pretty amazing. I see somebody in the chat talking about if Tailscale goes down or sells itself. Tailscale just went through another round of fundraising, and people got kind of nervous about that, because I think they went through a Series C and got a lot of money. People were like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. And they have more money. It's going to be more outside influence, and it's going to change things. Guys, you are not dependent on Tailscale. You can always self-host this, or again, with the competition that's going around, you can do what I did. I jumped to NetBird. I love Tailscale. I think it's a more mature product, but NetBird is out of Germany versus out of the United States. So from a security standpoint, that's kind of, I usually tend to go with the Europeans. GDPR is a little bit stricter than the data regulations in the United States. And I like their UI better. I think it's easier to use, and I think it's less likely to have problems like that. But again, I can self-host the whole thing if I want to. So if anyone's ever worried about something like that, like, oh man, I would never do that because what happens if it changes? Just self-host it. This way it never has. That's the whole point of this channel. Self-host it. It changes only when you choose to update it. You choose not to update it, it's going to be the same forever. So I love that. Let's jump over to software updates here. This is the second section of the self-hosted weekly newsletter. It'll be software updates, and below this you'll see new software. We're going to start and look at the updates going from top to bottom. And again, here, I love the fact that Self-Hosted does this. If you've never seen this weekly newsletter before, you'll see these little blue tags. And if I click these tags, it'll show me all the software that, like, for example, the first one, BuCloud version 2.2.0, it's a read-only public file sharing special character fix. So that's the change. So the change is it's read-only public file sharing, and they added special character fix, but it's a cloud storage container. So if I click cloud storage, it'll show me all the other cloud storage containers that are listed in the registry for self-hosted. And if you've never seen that, I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top. I'm going to open the apps in a new tab. This is the self-hosted apps catalog. And again, the screen will update in a minute. I use this all the time. This is an amazing tool if you've never seen it. In order to find things. And what I even love about this too is they have the alternative drop down box here. So I just click that box again. You guys will see it in a minute. If I want an alternative, for example, let me scroll down here, like, Google Docs. Let's do Google Docs. I'm going to click alternative to Google Docs. So when I click alternative for Google Docs, it'll give me 2 open source self-hosted pieces of software that function as an alternative to Google Docs. The first one it gives me is CryptPad. The next one it gives me is Nextcloud Office. So that's pretty cool. Like, this kind of takes the place of the search engine or me going to ChatGPT and being like, hey, if I use Google or Google Docs, again, going back to the PewDiePie video, and I don't want to use that, what else can I use that's like that? What else can I use that's safer and more secure and more private than that? So that kind of saves me that step. And there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Amazing differences for Twitch. Look at this. I don't even know this. Restreamer, Owncast, Ganymede. There's a lot of cool stuff here. But again, I use this a lot. I don't want to get super derailed in this video, but like, self-host is amazing. Like, I love the guys that make this site. I think it's great that they're giving us all this information, and we have all this opportunity. John, have you ever used this before, this catalog? Have you ever go through here and search this stuff?
Yeah, what I do is I go through the tag section or like the sort, and I just do recently added. So I just look at like the new stuff, some of like the more, and then sometimes I'll go through stars.
Yeah, let's do that.
And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
I like getting to know any exposure is good exposure.
Yeah.
Just like any publicity is good publicity. And so that's good for people that are self-hosting this stuff. I like what Ethan is doing here. It's just one person who's running this whole thing.
God bless that
man. Yeah, Ethan does a great job here. If you guys haven't seen this before, definitely go check it out. If you are willing to and you can afford it, definitely donate.
Yes, please do. I love it. Please, I would be very sad if this went away. And if this thing, obviously, if this one guy, depending on donations, please donate. So let's go over here by stars. Like, one of the things I usually do is I usually sort by stars. So this is the tag for Docker. So if I went for the Docker tag, sorting by most stars, it's going to start working my way over. So you see from some very familiar things that I talk about here. Watchtower, which is the automatic updater. Portainer and Dockage, which are front-end UI managers. Uptime Kuma, which is the monitor to make sure everything's still running, but it does way more than Docker. Komodo, which we're going to do a video on later. We'll talk about that later in this live stream. But yeah, no, this is, like, again, really cool way to just look at other stuff that's here for Docker. Squirrel Server Manager, I've used this before. It's very cool. But yeah, anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's a different section of that. But this is what you'll see when you go over to the apps catalog, and I think it's very powerful and quite amazing. So we come back down to the software updates. Okay, John.
For the newsletter that you're seeing, if you want to see it before we stream it every Friday at 11:30 EST, that could be different. It could be different. They'll hold us to that time. It could be different.
Yes, it could be.
It could be 9 p.m.
We will see.
It could be Saturday at 1 a.m.
I was up early this morning. It could very well be that.
Yeah. But yeah, you can definitely subscribe to this newsletter, and he sends it out about 8 a.m. somewhere around that time.
Yeah. Yep, definitely subscribe, check out, donate to this guy. I would very much appreciate it if you do, because, again, what he does benefits the whole community. So, again, let's take a look at some of these software updates here. The big one that I obviously want to talk about here is going to be Komodo. So I'm going to click this one first. Let's open this in a new tab. If anyone's never heard of Komodo, we've been having some internal discussions at servers at home about Komodo. Let me scroll down here. See if I could find a screenshot for you guys of Komodo on their GitHub. Here we go. Here's some. I'm going to start. You'll see the screen catch up in a minute. But basically, Komodo is a front-end UI manager for Docker, but it does a bunch of other stuff. I don't want to pigeonhole it to just being a Docker manager. it does so much more than that. So it does your Docker stacks, it does server monitoring, it can do deployments. You can have things in here like we're gonna have to we're gonna do a whole video on Komodo later because of how powerful it is, and I don't want to get too drugged down by that. But when you go look at the self-hosted update, it says the Komodo for version 1.18.4 support for resource templates, container port display, and links log sanitization. So that's the changes that went in the last version update, which is probably the 0.4 update. And again, this is another reason I love the self-host weekly, because not only do I get to see the name of the container and I get to see that tag, which in this case is deployment, I get to see exactly what the change is. So instead of me having to go to GitHub and actually look at the release notes, which of course I'd recommend you do always, especially if you have this container and you're thinking about updating, I get a quick little snippet right here. So before I get too far down the line, if it's such something simple like log sanitization, like that's probably not something that needs my full-on attention. But if I see something here, it says like, oh, breaking change with like Image, for example, a couple weeks ago when Image made their change, and there's a breaking change. I'm not saying breaking change, but a major update to the way they're doing their dataset structure. Yeah, I'm going to want to know about that. In fact, I'm probably going to do quite a lot of reading about that. In fact, we did do a lot of reading about that, and we're releasing a video about that. John, when's our video going out? I think about Image.
Monday at 3 p.m. EST.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll talk.
And there was already someone who commented on a video that we did a while ago, saying that, hey, this doesn't work anymore. Like,
yes, I saw that comment.
We had already made the video and it's scheduled for release. Unfortunately, we're kind of held up to the YouTube algorithm. We want to make sure that everyone knows that there's a breaking change and how to fix that breaking change. So we kind of do have to wait for a specific day, and that day we determined would be Monday.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So this is the first place that I heard about that. So if anyone wants to know how I got the news of this, it wasn't somebody on Discord, it wasn't somebody on Reddit, even though I like Reddit a lot. It was the Self-Host Weekly release. When it talked about this, I was scrolling through the updates, and it was like, hey, by the way, if you use Image, they're getting ready to change the way they do some things. And I was like, well, that's pretty important, because like, I will tell you that on the YouTube channel, if you guys look at it, and you guys can, it's pretty easy. It's all open source. It's all out there. If you sort by the most views, our two most viewed videos, it used to be Image. Image was the #1 video on this channel for a very, very long time. And then it just was recently overtaken by like the top 5 apps for your home lab, top 5 Docker apps, I think. And that was a really recent change. For a long time, Image is the #1 video that we've ever talked about, because Image is an insanely powerful piece of software that's very widely distributed. So yeah, that was a big deal. That was one of those things where I kind of sat up and went, wait, what's going on here? What are they about to break? Anyway, you guys will get more in the video about that. So looking at this list here, again, cloud storage, books. Oh, let's talk about that. I want to talk about books right now. So the book lore version 0.29 got released. It's got a redesigned icon, an improved EPUB reader, reads, status tracking and filtering, personal book ratings, and book deletion. There is some news here about books. I'm going to scroll down. I think it's all the way at the bottom of this. Where are we? Command line corner, related news and content. I know it's in here. Hold on. All the way in the top. Sorry, I actually scrolled past it. If anyone here knows what Readar is, Readar is the book aspect of the book little plugin container for the RStack. So if you're using Sonar and Radar, you're probably familiar with the media management tools that those are. Readar is for books. And it was always been kind of a mess, and we've had a lot of people on Discord ask, hey, can you integrate this into the stack? We want to see this more in the code. We want to know about how to use this container more. If you guys have been doing that, I've probably pointed you over to one of our helpers, the Dark Wizard. He's been the one that's been kind of spearheading the books aspect of the RStack, and he hates it. He has not been having a fun time, because a lot of people have been asking, and he's been the one that's kind of been gracious enough to donate his time to say, hey, I'm going to see if I can get this thing working. And after going through like 10 different containers and all sorts of iterations and all sorts of other stuff, there is no easy way to get this working. And just this morning at like 6 a.m. on the server Discord, they announced that Radar is being retired. It's done. They're no longer going to be maintaining it. Somebody might decide to fork it. Maybe somebody will do something else with it, but it's not going to exist anymore. So again, I just got that news this morning. I haven't been recommending this for almost anybody because of how difficult it is, but you'll see the huge gray bar, brown bar across the top that says this repository was archived by the owner on June 27th, 2025. It is now read only, and your screens will catch up in a minute. So yeah, it's done. It's done. And I got that news straight from self-hosted this morning. That was a pretty amazing announcement to see that. So, John, what do you tell me about how you feel about this container going under?
Books and music are hard to integrate to the stack. It's not as easily accessible as some of the other things added to the stack. Even comics are a little bit harder. So I'm not surprised that Readar is now just not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people were even really using it. There's only 3,000 stars, and that's a lot of stars, but compared to
the
some of the other
1.1K
R's
issues.
application.
Oh yeah, no, it's not even. I don't think it's comparable to something like Radar or Sonar, which are like workhorses of the industry. Yeah, no, so that was yeah, things like that where I'm just like, man, it's interesting to see when those kind of changes get made. Really kind of took me off, kind of caught me off guard, but again, I'm not using it. I agree with you. I think music, because of, not that I like or endorse in any way some of the music streaming services out there, like I use Pandora personally, but I know that's not what a lot of people use. A lot of people use Spotify. Spotify's got a lot of there's a lot of things going on with Spotify, a lot of things that they keep taking away from the free tier that people feel very strongly about. But yeah, it's I think music has become so easy because of things like Pandora and Spotify that a lot of people just aren't going to the media management software that, like, LiDAR, for example, to get it. Same with books. I don't know if people read anymore, John. I mean, when was the last time you read a book? Yeah. I'm curious.
My ChatGPT book.
Yeah.
And by harder, I mean, and Evan just kind of pointed that out. Spotify and every other player, Apple Music, YouTube Music, whoever, has kind of created this quote-unquote paradise for everyone. For music, you have all your music for free, or not for free. You can have it for free, or you could pay for it with so you don't have ads. And some ways you can get away with from those ads, and that's why movie and TV show gathering was not as prevalent back in the early 2010s, late like 2016, stuff like that. It's because it was all Netflix. It was all congregated in one area. Some people, you didn't get all your media, all your shows in one place, but people were willing to swallow that because of the price. But now, with you having as many streaming services as it used to cost for cable, and not getting every piece of media, or the media just being lost to time and never getting a physical release, with the music, books, people just don't care about books as much. Yeah, honestly,
which is sad.
And it's and it's unfortunately it's just going to get worse with AI. AI is just going to swallow up books and just tell book stories. I'm not saying I want that. I think writing is a very huge creative art, and is needed to tell human stories and human emotions and stuff like that. But it's just one thing that's soon going to be swallowed, and as a lot of people just don't read. And with the music, it is so easy to get in. It's so accessible that there's no one really striving to make it easy to gather it yourself.
Yeah,
for your own convenience.
I feel like there's been a renaissance in the media world, especially with video. I think video is undergoing a renaissance right now. It's one of the reasons this channel is so big. We started by talking about media management specifically with video. I never talk about it with music because of the panacea that's been created by things like I said, I use Pandora. I pay $7.99 a month for Pandora, and I get recommendations, I get streaming, and I don't have to pay that. I could have just stayed free and just gone with the commercials, which is one of the good things. I'm glad that Pandora and Spotify haven't done like the way that Amazon Video has, for example. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, you may have noticed that when you have video now, you used to be able to pay to avoid ads. Now you pay and get ads, and then they started charging you more to pay and get ads. So I'm like, this is just awful. And I think about the meme, John, that has been circling around forever, that media companies forget that the whole reason they exist is because they're slightly more convenient than sailing the high seas. So I'm like, yeah, that's the music industry has not forgotten that. They keep things pretty cheap. They don't really trash their own product a whole lot the way I see Netflix and Amazon and Disney doing with their streaming services. And I just like it. That's why I think LiDAR is probably going the way of REDAR soon. When it comes to REDAR, I'll tell you, when it comes to books, I don't use REDAR the way that it was intended to be used. In fact, I don't use it at all. When I needed books, especially because the books I read are mostly textbooks, so I might read like the CompTIA books, the A+ stuff. Those things are expensive. I'm not reading like the latest John Grisham. I'm reading like, like Security Plus and like looking at the certification stuff or things like that. Those textbooks exist in different places of the internet, and REDAR was never good with that. Like they never I think if maybe they focus more on textbooks and things like for the educational sector, because God, how many people go to college these days? Like how many hundreds of thousands of people enrolled in college? Millions in this country. So I'm like, man, if they'd gone that way, maybe they would have had a chance. But just focusing on books in general, I just think that's what did it, man. That's what did it. That hurt it pretty bad. But yeah. Yeah, let's move down here. I want to talk about some of this new software. This is one of the most exciting sections for me, is new software. The existing software, of course, you have to pay attention to. You have to pay attention to updates in case there's breaking changes, like with image or like something like REDAR goes down. That's very important to know, especially if you're running one of the containers that happens we mentioned. Anytime I'm scrolling through the updates and I see a container that I'm running, I definitely stop and click and read and make sure I have a complete understanding of what's happening. But new software, this is where a lot of the inspiration comes from for the YouTube channel. This is where I get really excited because people are building things all the time, and some of the stuff they're building is awesome. So I really just like seeing what some of the new developers are out there, what they're doing, what they're replacing, maybe some ways that they're trying to be competitive. That's amazing to me, and I think that's great. This first one, for example, Aurelez? John, how do you say this? Aurelez? I'm not even sure what this is.
I am not sure.
Yeah, but it's built. I saw the thing that I liked about it, as I say, it's built on Cloudflare's Pangora, and I don't know what Pangora is for Cloudflare, but they got some pretty iconography here. Oh my God, I don't even know what language this is. That is a crazy looking thing there. It's a reverse proxy service mesh built on top of Cloudflare's Pangora. All right, so it's named after the legendary Armenian guardian spirit wing-like dog creature that descends upon fallen heroes to lick their wounds and resurrect them. Well, that's a pretty baller background. Let's scroll down here. So it's built on Rust, which I love. Very secure language. It's built on Cloudflare's Pangora. Cloudflare is another one of those things I want to shout out. If you're not using Cloudflare is one of those things where I'm like, how is this free? And a lot of times people are like, oh, if you're not paying for it, you're the product. I feel like Cloudflare isn't like that yet. So I'm kind of like bullish on Cloudflare because the DDoS protection they give you for free, everything I do is through like their tunnels, which are free. The only thing I do is I use them for a registrar, so I have to pay like for example, servers at home, the actual like FQDN, the domain. I think it costs me like $10 a year. So I pay less than $1 a month, and I get the tunnels. I get all the DNS features, I get the mail features, I get all that stuff. So I mean, and they just give that to me for free. So the only thing I'm paying for right now is the actual domain. Everything else is free, which is just like, oh my God. Yeah. Anyway, so it's anything built on Cloudflare. I'm immediately like, yes, tell me more. So this has got a lot of features here, like a ton of stuff I'm seeing in this list right here. It's got a lot of upstream providers. I see file structure here. It's got a pretty robust configuration. Installation. So yeah, no, because one of the things I tell you that John, is of course you see this, so many people setting up things like Nginx Proxy Manager. A lot of people are challenged with doing the reverse proxy. I'm curious. Have you gotten yours up?
I'm not really sophisticated with stuff like that, and I set it up pretty easily, and that was before the guide that you did on YouTube, and that was pretty good. I'm pretty sure I contributed some notes to that, if I remember correctly. But it was pretty seamless.
Yeah. This is a really great table too. I'm really glad they put this in here. The wide shoes RLS, the feature comparison. So of course you'll see here, there's all the green checks because they're making themselves look real good. But of course I want to compare this to things like Traffic and things like Nginx. I don't use HA proxy. I don't know many people that do. I should probably get into that more. But Traffic I used to start with. So if anyone has been here on TrueNAS since like Bluefin, or Cobia, Traffic used to be integrated. It used to be this really cool thing. Basically, you would just install the Traffic app through the app catalog, and when you were launching a container, they would have this little checkbox that says, would you like to use this with Traffic? And if you click yes, it'll automatically create a reverse proxy for you. Like, it was the most stupid, simple setup I've ever seen in my life. I was like, this is amazing. And it worked mainly with the TrueCharts apps. But of course, when TrueCharts went away, and Traffic became a little more difficult. Now, when you use Traffic, if you've ever seen any of, God, who does that? Jim's Garage. Jim's Garage is a very famous YouTube channel out there, and he loves Traffic. So when you look at his Docker containers, you're going to see like this huge Docker Compose file because Traffic, the way they do the labeling, you have to have like 20 labels on every single Docker Compose channel to get it to work. But once it's working, it's actually pretty great. So I don't want to knock on Traffic. It's a great system if you're willing to use it. And understand the labeling system. I thought Nginx was a lot more straightforward, but I know that a lot of people complain about when they get it going, oh, my certs don't work, or you have to understand how to do reverse proxying, how to do port forwarding on your router, and understanding the difference between having a DNS entry in the cloud and then having the DNS entry and Nginx, so everything, it's a little bit, it's a little bit involved. Once you understand it, it's like, and it kind of clicks, it's very straightforward. But for people on the learning curve, you're going to be like, this is so complicated. What do I don't even understand what's going wrong. But once I encourage anybody that's using it to stick with it, because once you get it, it's like, it's pretty magical. It's pretty simple for what it does. But in the comparison here, looking at this table, like I said, I can see some things here that are just interesting that they've built into this system. This might be something I have to play with a little bit more. But again, anything that competes with Nginx, I always want to know about that because it's one of the most common containers that I recommend, especially for guys. I see some people in the comments talking about the tunnels. The tunnels are slightly limiting for Cloudflare, which is the reason we just did the Pangolin video not long ago. Pangolin is the self-hosted version of Cloudflare tunnels. And they don't have any of the restrictions of Cloudflare tunnels. So Cloudflare tunnels' biggest restriction is streaming media, or basically not serving HTTP content. The tunnels are built for HTTP content, and if you're doing anything but that, you're technically violating the terms of service. So the tunnels are great, but for example, when I stream media, I use Emby and I have a media server, and when I want to stream media, I want to change that so that I don't have to go through the tunnel. So in this case, I have to have tunnels as a reverse proxy, and I have Nginx Proxy Manager as a reverse proxy. And if I wanted to self-host that, I would go with Pangolin instead of my Cloudflare tunnels with the VPS built-in component. So that video is really great. John, you watched that video, didn't you? What did you think of the Pangolin setup?
I thought I didn't do it because I prefer Cloudflare.
As do I. Even though I made that video, I still don't use it.
Is just another service that I don't understand how it's free. But so many companies use it because of how necessary it is. And they're also looking into, what is it? It's to help stop AI crawling on websites because a whole bunch of like news publicists or publications are having to lay off their workers because a lot of people are less likely to go out and read news articles and just get the AI summary of it. So I personally support Cloudflare in a lot more ways, and so that's why I'm okay with giving them my money. I understand Pangolin has its great parts. If you want to self-host it, if you want to make sure that that's going to work for you. But I think Cloudflare's doing the work of the people to make sure that people aren't going to lose their jobs and get taken over by AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally use the bot blocker on Cloudflare to stop things from scraping all the sites that I have. It's a problem, man. The bots out there are getting aggressive, and the fact that Cloudflare just builds that in, and I just can turn it on and it's just literally just a switch where I hit bot blocker and it's done. The only thing I have to do when I do that, for anyone that's actually following my instructions here, if you do that, make sure you whitelist your own home IP. So like, for example, Uptime Kuma, that's a bot. and it registers as a bot as Cloudflare. So if I have something exposed on Cloudflare and I use Uptime Kuma to make sure it's actually available, Uptime Kuma will show it as down until I purposely whitelist my IP that Uptime Kuma is coming from, because it registers as a bot. So if you're doing that, just gets a little caveat right there. Make sure you do that. But again, that's how great it is. That's how great Cloudflare is. Even my own self-hosted bots aren't allowed to get to my own stuff until I let them in. So yeah, kudos to them, man. I love Cloudflare so much. I wish I could work for them. If Cloudflare is listening, give me a job. All right. This I saw the other day, the auto resume. I want to talk just a little bit about this. I'm not going to talk about every single one of these. We're pushing an hour already on this, but this is really cool. I saw this guy talk about this on YouTube, I think, this auto resume builder. This is another huge problem. You want to talk about getting a job. John, when was the last time you applied for a job and actually got it by going through like LinkedIn or something like that and having to submit your resume?
All my jobs have been word of mouth.
Yep.
So never.
Yeah, exactly. Never. It doesn't work these days. There's too much AI. There's too much crap. There's too many AIs searching for keywords in resumes these days. And if you don't hit the AI keyword, a human being never will even see that. And I kind of get the idea of it. I was watching a LinkedIn video the other day from the recruiter's point of view, and they're like, listen, if I post a job on LinkedIn, within an hour, I'll have 4,000 resumes. Like, that's not possible. Like, we don't have a whole department. They don't have a whole department of people just looking at resumes to even keep up with the torrents of flow that comes from something like LinkedIn. So, of course, everybody's going to use AI to sort them. And, of course, AI is going to do a crappy job, and people that are qualified are going to get looked over. So Auto Resume is this really cool thing that it's built. It's got a simple Docker Compose file, but basically what it'll do, it'll either look at your GitHub or look at a job application that you post into it. So for example, Intel posts something for the next job opening, they'll have all the requirements on there. You can copy and paste the entire post into this container, and it'll create a resume with your background custom built for that specific role. And I think that's pretty amazing, especially considering the fact if you do that, and if you apply for jobs like that, and you're not like John where it's just word of mouth, and you got to put in an application, like, man, it's time consuming. It can be very time consuming. Job applications are horrendous, not just because you have to tailor your resumes to get around the AI like I just explained, but also, Jesus, those platforms that you have to apply through, and John has no idea what I'm talking about because he's all word of mouth, but anyone out there that's been on LinkedIn and says, oh, you have click the apply button, and it forwards you to like their portal for whatever company you're trying to apply to. If you're not good at that, you can get sucked in for like 20 or 30 minutes clicking buttons, answering questions, uploading things, and then correcting the auto read. Like, oh my God, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So when I see things like this, I'm like, this is really cool. This is a pretty straightforward thing to do. You can see the GitHub here is not super detailed. Let me click the Medium blog link and see if I can get some screenshots for you guys. Yeah, here's some screenshots in here. Okay, John.
As far as like auto resume, and another one that I saw that I was interested in was reactive resume. You type in everything and then it'll help you organize it. So it's not really putting the info in there for you. It helps just pretty it all up and just a good format for you. So it's not really doing everything like that for you. So yeah, I get what you're saying, what everyone's saying about making sure that if it looks too good or too fake, then it's just not going to get accepted.
Yeah, it's been a huge problem lately in the world. So this is actually a good picture of it right here. So you can just do the generate here, and it's got all kinds of cool things. It's built in with AI. You can hook in your OpenAPI key to it, OpenAI API key to it. There's a few things here, but I almost feel like we're getting to like I'm a huge sci-fi fan. So talking about reading books before, I used to read a lot. I still read as much as I can, but sci-fi is like my passion, man. So I remember one of the sci-fi authors back in the day, or not even back in the day, pretty recently said in the future there's going to be two jobs. Either you're going to be the person that tells the computer what to do, or you're the person that's going to be told by the computer what to do. And I think about that now when I look at something like this. I'm like, yeah, I'm applying for a job using AI to make a resume that's going to be reviewed by AI to determine whether or not I'm actually qualified to get me to another human. I feel like, man, we've injected so much work into this. That's insane when you think about what, like, if I actually could explain it to somebody back in like 1980 and I fast forward them to today and they ask me about jobs, I'm like, yeah, well, I use this cool little thing called AI, this computer, which builds my resume, and that resume gets sent to another computer, which will then read that resume, and then maybe if I get lucky and those two computers like hit it off, some human eventually will get to read my resume, and maybe I'll get an interview. Like that's actually what happens these days.
It's crazy how much. And this is kind of off topic, but just how much already people are using AI. My wife's going back to school for a bachelor's degree, and it's all online for a university. So not a community college that's doing this. A high-end university is doing this.
Yeah.
They are not having a teacher sit in on the test. They are having you put on a camera and nothing else is in your background or anything, and to track your eye movements and just make sure that you're not cheating or anything like that. It makes you unplug your secondary screen. It knows if you have another screen on or anything like that. And it's just so much. If even like SEO is AI handled and stuff like that, if you're not using it, someone else is. And so that's what I think a good talking point for auto resume would be.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it and not utilizing it, someone else is, and they're the ones getting the job.
Oh, yeah.
With my thought process on AI, it's definitely don't use everything it gives. Use as a tool. Use about like 40, maybe 60% of what it gives you. And then the rest, you finalize.
Yeah, I kind of like it for building structure. I'm a huge fan of it just being like, hey, create an outline for this, and then I fill the content. I think that's a really great way to kind of go about it, because then it's my words, but it just looks prettier, better organized than maybe I could have done. Yeah. So let's move forward a little bit. When somebody was talking about certs in the because we were talking about Nginx Proxy Manager, and we were looking at that other piece of software before. If anyone doesn't know what certbot is basically what's going on under the hood of Nginx Proxy Manager that does the auto renewal and the auto generation of certs for Let's Encrypt. Let's Encrypt is another one of those quiet heroes out there. If you don't know what Let's Encrypt is, or you've never taken Security Plus, I will tell you that the way that we do trust on the internet is based on certificates and certificate signing, and it's a really, really complex and interesting system. I'm not going to get into the weeds of that one, but certbot is what's doing all the work under the hood of Nginx Proxy Manager, so you can go out to Let's Encrypt, which will generate certificates for you for free. Before Let's Encrypt, generating certificates was an absolute nightmare. Before certbot, it was an absolute nightmare. So here's this really cool piece of software that was announced on the self-hosted weekly for the last on Friday today. CertMate, SSL certificate management system. This is just basically the front end to a Docker container that uses the REST API that's going to allow you to manage SSL certs. So when I look at this, I'm like, this obviously looks a lot like NPM. I see the same kind of 4 buckets across the top here, but man, this looks pretty amazing. Like, this is a really, really pretty UI, very straightforward, and it makes it look like these certificates are very simple. Like, I'm going to scroll down for you guys here in a minute, and you'll see here that Cloudflare is one of the first ones that's listed. I see Route 53 for AWS, Azure DNS, Google DNS, and a couple other things here. But yeah, it looks basically like a token, an email address, and it looks like you can generate certificates or refresh certificates right from this interface. Again, not using any command line, all front end. This is really pretty. I don't get into this a lot, and I'm going to tell you why I don't get into this a lot. One, because the person that mentioned that certs are a nightmare, they kind of are a little bit. I use Nginx Proxy Manager, and it makes it all automatic. For me, certs aren't a nightmare at all, because once I create a proxy site in Nginx Proxy Manager, that's it. I'm done. I don't manage the certs. That's what Nginx does. I have the container for that. I don't do that manually. Nginx uses certbot under the hood and will automatically renew my certificate every so many days, usually 90 days, but a little bit less than that, so that if anyone tries to go to my site that I expose through Nginx Proxy Manager, they don't get that big ugly thing that says this site is unsafe, click accept to continue, or to bypass it. This is a self-signed certificate, so please click accept to continue. This may be dangerous. In order to avoid those stupid things, that's what Nginx Proxy Manager does through certbot, through Let's Encrypt. That's the stack that kind of runs. So that's what I do. The other way around that is I do this with Cloudflare tunnels. Cloudflare also manages certificates. So if I connect something through a Cloudflare tunnel, Cloudflare handles the certificate. I don't have to worry about that. So I don't actually use this stuff a whole lot. But for people out there, like I see on the chat, that are like, oh man, this looks really hard, certs are really hard, I don't know how to manage this, I want to be able to create my own, etc., etc., etc. Especially for people that are doing the homelab stuff, that are like, I want to do my certs for my own personal .locals. This might be a really cool way to do that. I might have to get into this more. We might put this on the list of things to do in terms of videos, but again, I don't get into this a whole lot just because I use Nginx Proxy Manager or Cloudflare. And I think, John, that's what you said you use a lot, so you just basically use Cloudflare tunnels? That's how you manage it? Yeah. Yeah, that's my recommendation to my viewers. If you're out there listening right now, use Cloudflare tunnels. Don't even worry about certs. If you use Nginx Proxy Manager, once you get your first site set up and you see the cert works, then the rest of them just kind of go. It's all downhill from there. The first site is the hardest site. Once you get one proxy up and running and you kind of know the steps, it's super simple from there going forward. So let's keep going down this list. Last.fm music, automated music discovery tool based on listening history. Discover Last.fm. I've never heard this. And again, talking about the music discussion we had before about LiDAR and about radar. I'm always interested in like people that are using this. So if you're using this, please comment in the tags. Or if you're using self-hosted music, please tell me about it in the chat. If you're not on like a Pandora or a Spotify, I want to kind of know how you guys are managing your music. I want to know what it's like for you to have to go out and get this stuff by yourself and then manage it and tag it and then stream it. And then the other thing too is discovery. Like one of the main things I love about Pandora is the fact that like it discovers music for me. I don't have to know what the latest music is out there because I'll never be able to keep up with that stuff. Man, there's so much stuff getting released. Pandora just knows what I like because of what I listen to, what I skip, what I thumbs up, what I thumbs down, and it just picks music that it thinks I'm going to like, and it's usually right. It's really, really good at what it does. So if I went and like started self-hosting where I'm like grabbing whole albums at a time from artists that I like, my question to you guys that are doing this is, how do you find new music? You're not listening to the radio. No one listens to the radio anymore. So I'm just like, well, how do you discover that? So this is a really interesting, cool tool.
Well, I think that's what this is.
Yeah, this is it. This is how to discover. So
it looks like it's looking for FM.
Yeah, well, Last.fm is a container. Because the Last.fm is a free service, I believe. I know Music Brains as well, even though I don't use it a whole lot. So someone just said, who said that? Adupa Vasista. Adupa, I see that you said that you use your own collection and use PlexAmp. That's really interesting. I haven't heard the word PlexAmp in a while. That's interesting. Like I said, I'm really interested in what the community is using for this kind of stuff. So this does depend on LiDAR. To automatically discover. So that's, again, I don't know how much longer that container is going to last, but we'll see. This thing's really cool. Do we have any screenshots of this? I think it's all done in the background.
What are you using to grab your music, if you don't mind me asking?
So I'm using Pandora.
Adupa,
yeah. Yeah, I am curious about that. Yeah.
Let us know. We'll discuss that.
Yeah. Yeah, really curious. So this is a really cool bolt-on feature. Again, if you're using the, if you're doing something like that where you're grabbing your own stuff and using LiDAR, this is probably going to be one of those things you bolt onto your stack to just enhance your quality. So this is a really cool thing that's out there. Again, I didn't even know this existed, but this is exactly why I read self-hosted. Because if I didn't read self-hosted, I would not know that there's a such thing as music discovery containers for people that host their own music at their own music servers. That's pretty cool. SoulSeek to discover the music and Solar to automate this. Yes, I've heard of both of these containers. Somebody actually just asked about Solar on the on the Servers at Home Discord, and we haven't gotten into it yet because again, the music scene is not something that we dive super far into. But maybe we should start looking into this, John. What do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely going into that. I think I put it on the list of stuff for us to look into. If you want to contact us on the Discord, Adupa, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, by the way. Yeah. I would greatly appreciate it, and so to kind of teach everyone else and maybe learn ourselves.
Yeah, if you're not on the, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put something in the chat right now. So I'm going to dump the Discord invite into the chat right now, and on Discord for our server, we also have a suggestions channel. So if you guys have some suggestions like that where you're doing things or you're already using things that maybe we should know about or maybe we should be talking about more, please let us know, man. Jump on Discord, join the community, and make a suggestion. I promise you I read every single suggestion that goes on there. I mean, I respond to all of them, and maybe not all of them get, because we have other videos that sometimes take precedence that, things that have breaking changes that we need to talk about right now. But we read every single suggestion and we try to respond to everything. So definitely jump on the Discord server and talk to us about this kind of stuff. Let's jump back over here. So there's a bunch of other things that were updated. Like I said, man, there's so much here. If we were to go through every single one of these, we'd be on here for the rest of the day, and that's not going to be it. But I encourage you guys to come over here and jump on these things. Another thing, like I see URL shorteners down here all the way at the bottom. The URL shorteners are pretty popular these days. I see another Kanban board. John and I went through quite a bit of Kanban boards trying to figure out how we were going to manage servers at home, the video feed. We eventually settled on Trello, which is very kind of anti-self-hosting because we should have probably self-hosted, but the self-hosted ones weren't doing what we wanted to yet. So if someone's out there and working on more Kanban, or you know about other Kanban boards that are self-hosted that are very, very feature-rich, please tell us about it, because we went through like 10 of them trying to find something that we really liked.
We went through Vinkuja, Dumbcan.
Planka.
There was one, Planka. There was one that I just saw that I was wanting to try out. Shoot, what was it? Yeah. I forget what it was, but it looked pretty interesting.
Yeah, this one looks pretty basic. To cry is a simple self-hosted Kanban style 2 applications. This is pretty simple. This is, yeah. Are you going to cry? That's a funny note. So this looks pretty simple. Obviously, the ones that me and John were looking for, we were looking for a lot of customizability. So if you guys are thinking out there like, oh, I've seen some other Kanbans that are pretty basic. Yeah, we went through a bunch of basic Kanban boards, and we wanted something that was much more feature rich. So that's why we kind of ended up going the Trello way, just to settle the argument at that point. But like this kind of basic kind of stuff is we've seen a bunch of these. Like Dumbcan, which is obviously the dumbware products are out there, and I've looked at some of their stuff. Some of it's good, some of it I'm not super enamored about. But yeah, no, like there's some stuff out there. So if you have something, again, drop it on Discord, hit up suggestions, and let us know.
It was actually can.bn, kan.bn. I thought that was pretty interesting. It looked interesting.
This does look interesting. See, and they're pushing it as the open source version of Trello, which is what I call, in my opinion, Planka is the universal, like is the open source for Trello. But this is really cool. I might flag this because how do I get?
Yeah, I have it listed for us to look at.
Do you? Fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah. By the way, server. Oh yeah, cool. Let's start at one.
And it does, and that's another thing that I like. You can self-host it.
Yeah.
So you can use their service, or you can just self-host it. And it has a paid tier, which, in my opinion, I prefer open source software that has a free tier or has a paid tier, because I know it's going to get support. That's why I prefer Bitwarden as much as I do, and I pay for it because I can pay for it, and there's other people who can't. And so.
Yeah, I love that model. I'm the same way. I love that model. If I see somebody that's got open source software that also has a paid tier, I know I'm good to go. That's not just going to die off, because people are actively paying for that. And God bless the people that are, because the people that are paying for it are making sure that people that aren't paying for it are getting stability. That's what you're buying. You're buying stability, and that's priceless in your home lab sometimes, especially with something like password management. I don't all of a sudden want all my passwords to disappear because of the password tool I was using. The guy's like, this isn't worth it anymore. I'm going to stop supporting this, and then something really bad happens. So yeah, totally get why you pay for Bitwarden. Like, that makes total sense to me. And this is pretty straightforward. I like, John, we're definitely going to look into this. This is really cool. We might have to jump. But anyway, okay. I'm going to scroll down here to the very last couple sections here on self-hosted. We're going to wrap this up in a few minutes. The latest directory apps here. There's nothing here that really jumped off of it to me, except for you guys for Strava, users, statistics for Strava, workout.cool for the fitness here. There's some pretty interesting things in the latest directory apps. Every once in a while, I'll catch something really cool here. And of course, the project updates for AudioLing here for music streaming. Again, we were just talking about music. There's another update here. Scroll through these here. If anything jumps off the page at you guys, please let us know in the chat, or just get on here yourself and start clicking around. Again, support these guys, support this person who's doing this, and keep this project going. The very bottom here talks about the self-hosted survey. If you guys have never done the self-hosted survey before, I pulled it up specifically. It's over here. I'm going to drop this in the chat right now. The self-hosted survey is pretty amazing. You'll see here, it's got a few pages. There's 15 steps, but you don't have to answer everything. It's all optional. You can just click through here and answer 1 or 2 questions if you want. I kind of love the self-hosted survey because I like getting the statistics of who else is out there. Like for me, if I'm self-hosting, I want to know, hey, who else is out there self-hosting with me? What are people running? Because one of the cool things you'll see in the survey is it asks things like, what are your favorite containers? What are the top containers you're in right now? What do you use for this? What's your operating system? What do you, like, what kind of phone? Like, they'll ask you all sorts of questions like that. And then I'll go back and I'll look at the results and I'll be like, man, this container is like number 3 on the list of like everybody said you have to have it, and I've never even heard of it before. I'm like, maybe I should know what that is. Maybe I should be looking into this. So it gives me great inspiration and great ideas. I see so many Reddit posts out there of what should I host, or what should I put in my, or I already have these containers. What do you guys recommend? I definitely use the self-hosted survey as kind of a springboard for that. Like, what should I be hosting? What are people hosting that I should be hosting? What are people not hosting? Am I hosting something that's got, that somebody else is hosting a different version of that's way better than the version I'm hosting? Like the Kanban board, for example. If I'm using something else and all of a sudden can.bn comes out, should I switch? Like, maybe I should. Maybe I should look into this. So, the Reddit post that talked about this is got the first 400 responses out. And they'll show you the sneak peek down here. First insights from the initial 400 plus responses. Now, I will tell you this survey gets thousands and thousands of responses. So this is just a very quick and dirty kind of summary of what it is. So I'm going to scroll down and you guys are going to catch up in a minute. And it's pretty much giving us 2 or 3 questions that are trending right now on the survey. So the first one is, what is the primary host operating system or platform running directly on your self-hosting hardware? It says, can you guess the most 3 selected options? Number 1 was Proxmox, the most commonly hosted operating system for running your self-hosting hardware was Proxmox. Number 2 was Debian. Number 3 was Ubuntu. Containerization, 98% of people are running containers. Next question, which reverse proxy server do you use at the moment, and can you guess the 3 most selected options? Number 1, Nginx Proxy Manager. Number 2 is Traffic, and number 3 is Caddy. Dude, Caddy is rough. Like, if you're out there running Caddy, please let me know in the chat. That's something right there. That is definitely a little bit more complex, I think, than some of the other options. But of course, that's why we have these options, because if something changes, maybe Caddy all of a sudden starts to look really, really attractive for something it offers that isn't offered anywhere else. But right below you'll see there's a few more questions out here. Select your favorite ad blocker. There's a race between Pi-hole and AdGar Home right now. It's really, really tight. Favorite database, Postgres and MySQL. Favorite firewall. Other is leading. So right now, other is the number one answer in the firewall category, which is interesting to me because OpenSense and pfSense are hugely common. In fact, I used to be a pfSense guy, I think, until they decided to go completely, I think they went completely paid or closed source. They changed something in their backend. I think they went closed source with it, where it was like, it became less attractive to me, and I think OpenSense is the completely free and open version of pfSense now, but that's not even in the lead. Firewall, so everybody said other.
I'm pretty sure it's Ubiquity. Ubiquity isn't in the list.
See, John says that because he's a Ubiquity guy. I will tell you again, going all the way back full circle to the beginning of this conversation, John throws a lot of money at his hardware. If you don't know,
Ubiquity is cheap now.
Cheap? How much is the router?
They're cheap to enter. You can get it set up for $300.
Really?
Yeah, you can get started with Ubiquity for $300.
Okay. I remember Ubiquity. So I will tell you that some of the Ubiquity pieces of equipment I'm familiar with are the stuff that I see like Techno Tim do and stuff like that, where like Ubiquity, because he's so huge and he's such a big YouTube star at this point, that Ubiquity will throw a huge amount of gear at him. So I'll see like his new like router or switch that he's advertising. Like, oh, Ubiquity just gave me this. So I'm going to show you guys and run you through the video. And it's like $1,000 piece of kit. And I'm like, pass. Like, it's a hard pass on that. Yeah. If you guys want to know a little bit about me just personally, I have 2 switches on top of each other in my rack right now. The top one is a 10 gigabit switch I got off eBay for like $250 because I run 10 gigabit base T. I don't run any fiber optics. It's too complicated for me. I just run everything Ethernet through Cat 6. So I got that thing for like $250 used off eBay. It's an 8-port 10 gigabit switch. And all ports are 10 gig. My actual switch, like my 48 port like regular gigabit, was something I got out of the back of somebody's car for $20 off of homelabs sales on Reddit. So when I see the Ubiquity gear that like Techno Tim uses and like some people get for free that they get to review for YouTube, and they're like literally $1,000 for the switch, I'm like, dude, my whole setup doesn't cost $1,000. Never mind just this one piece of networking hardware. But I will give it to you. Ubiquity is incredible. Like when I see the UI, when I see what they're doing, when I see how simple some of it is, and some of the like. Dude, it's beautiful. Like, I understand why they charge as much money as they do. It is gorgeous. It's absolutely. So John teases me sometimes. We do screen shares on Discord, and I see like his networking setup, and I'm like, man, I would love to have something like that. Please donate to the channel.
The benefit of working from home and being IT is that they'll pay for it. So.
I know. I try to get my boss to pay for more stuff. So he paid for that 10 gigabit switch actually. But again, it was like $250. Like it wasn't anything crazy. But anyway, that's the survey. That's self-hosted. I'm going to close this tab for TrueNAS. And this is going to be the end of this podcast, well, this video cast, I think, for today. We've been here about 90 minutes or so. And I hope you guys liked it. Please leave some comments below. For people that are going to watch this later and going to rewatch, leave some comments in here. I'm going to come back and keep an eye on it. We plan on doing this every single week, every single Friday, right now at 11:30. Again, that might be subject to change, but we kind of want to keep this going. So if you liked it, please let us know. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Please like and subscribe. If you want to thank me personally, please buy me a coffee. John, anything left for today before we sign off?
Bye!
All right, bye, everybody. I'm going to cut the stream off now, and I will see you next week. And thank you for everybody that tuned in, man. It really meant a lot to me. I've never done a live stream before. This is the first ever time. So thank you guys so much, because I was kind of scared to death to do this, and John was like, let's co-host. We'll just kind of go back and forth, and I think it worked out really well. But let me know what you think. So I'm signing off right now about 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you guys for being a part of Servers at Home. Thank you guys for contributing to the community. And please continue to keep an eye on the space as we continue to expand and